Captain Daeho Kim stared at the radar screen in disbelief. The massive objects floating at the edge of the solar system were definitely not asteroids. They were too organized, too perfect in their formation. His hand shook as he reached for the communication device. "Command, this is Captain Kim. We have a situation." The voice crackled back immediately. "What kind of situation, Captain?" "Unknown vessels. Dozens of them. Maybe hundreds. They just appeared near Neptune. Within minutes, every major government on Earth was in emergency session." President Jin-Woo Lee sat in the situation room, surrounded by his top advisors. The large screen showed grainy images of sleek, silver ships arranged in perfect geometric patterns. "How big are they?" asked General Park. "Our best estimate is that the largest ones are over 5 kilometers long," replied Captain Kim through the video link. "Sir, these aren't human ships." The room fell silent. Everyone knew what this meant, but no one wanted to say it first. Dr. So-Young Park, Earth's best expert on languages, was called in immediately. She had spent years preparing for this moment, studying every possible way to communicate with alien life. But now that it was actually happening, she felt completely unprepared. "We need to establish communication," she told the president. "But we have no idea what they want or even if they're friendly." As if responding to her words, every communication device on Earth began receiving the same signal. It started as static, then slowly formed into something that sounded almost like music. So-Young worked frantically with her team, trying to decode the patterns. "It's mathematical," she announced after 3 hours of work. "They're using prime numbers and basic equations. They're trying to show us they're intelligent." The breakthrough came when the aliens began transmitting images. Simple. Pictures at first, a circle, a triangle, then more complex diagrams. So-Young realized they were building a visual language. "They're teaching us how to talk to them," she said with amazement. It took 2 days, but finally the first real message came through. The translation was rough, but the meaning was clear. "We come in peace. We are here to help." The alien fleet slowly moved closer to Earth, stopping just outside the moon's orbit. Their ships were beautiful, nothing like the crude metal spacecraft humans had built. They seemed to be made of some kind of crystal that glowed with soft light. President Lee made the decision to respond. "Tell them we welcome peaceful contact." The reply came quickly. "We are the Velthani. We have traveled far to reach you. Your species is in great danger. We offer our protection." Dr. Minho Choi, a physicist who had been studying the alien ships, was fascinated by their technology. The ships seemed to bend space around them, creating their own gravity fields. Their energy signatures were unlike anything humans had ever seen. "These beings are incredibly advanced," he told his research partner, Hye-Jin Nam. "Their technology is probably thousands of years ahead of ours." The Velthani requested permission to send a small delegation to Earth. After much debate, the world leaders agreed. The meeting would take place at the United Nations building in New York. When the Velthani shuttle landed, crowds gathered from all over the world. The beings that emerged were tall and graceful, with pale blue skin and large dark eyes. They moved like dancers, every gesture smooth and purposeful. Their leader introduced herself as Commander Velthara. She spoke through a translation device that converted her melodic language into perfect English. "Humans of Earth," she said, "we bring urgent news. A terrible threat approaches your world. Ancient enemies that destroy everything in their path. We have fought them for centuries across the galaxy." President Lee leaned forward. "What kind of threat?" "Beings of pure destruction. They consume entire worlds, leaving nothing behind. Our intelligence indicates they will reach this system within 5 years." The room erupted in worried whispers. Velthara raised a delicate hand for silence. "But do not fear. The Velthani have sworn to protect younger species like yourselves. We offer you our advanced weapons, our shield technology, our alliance. Together, we can defend Earth." Over the following weeks, the Velthani proved their good intentions. They shared some of their technology freely, medical devices that could heal injuries in minutes, power sources that could provide clean energy for entire cities. They positioned their ships in defensive formations around Earth's orbit. Dr. Choi worked day and night studying the alien technology. The principles behind their devices were completely different from human science, but somehow they worked better than anything humans had ever created. "It's incredible," he told Hyejin. "Their energy shields could protect our entire planet. Their weapons could destroy asteroids the size of mountains." The world began to change rapidly. With Velthani technology, many of humanity's problems seemed solvable. Hunger, disease, and energy shortages could all be addressed with alien science. But some humans remained suspicious. Seok Jin Yu, a military strategist, studied the alien ship positions carefully. Something bothered him, but he couldn't quite figure out what it was. "Why are their ships arranged like that?" he asked his colleague, Boram Kang. "If they're protecting us from an external threat, shouldn't they be facing outward?" Boram looked at the tactical displays. "You're right. Some of their ships are facing toward Earth, not away from it." Meanwhile, the cultural exchange between humans and Velthani continued. The aliens seemed genuinely interested in human art, music, and literature. They were amazed by human creativity and diversity. "Your species is remarkable," Commander Velthera told President Lee during one of their meetings. "So much variation in such a small population. So much potential." The way she said the word potential stuck with the president, though he couldn't say why. Wu-Jin Han, an investigative journalist, began asking questions that others seemed to avoid. Why had the Velthani chosen Earth specifically? How had they known about the approaching threat? And why did they seem so interested in human weapons and military capabilities? His research partner, Yun-Soo Oh, helped him analyze Velthani communication patterns. They discovered that the aliens sent frequent reports back to their home fleet, and these reports seemed to focus heavily on human technology and adaptation capabilities. "They're studying us as much as they're helping us," Woo-Jin told Yun-Soo. "But why?" 3 months after first contact, Earth had settled into an uneasy but hopeful routine. The Velthani continued to share their technology and prepare Earth's defenses. Humans began to feel safe, protected by their powerful alien allies. But questions remained, and some humans, like Seok Jin Yu, couldn't shake the feeling that something important was being left unsaid. The first crack in the perfect alliance came during a routine military briefing, when Seok-jin finally asked the question that would change everything. The joint military briefing room was filled with humans and Velthani officers. Maps of the solar system covered the walls, showing defensive positions and patrol routes. Commander Velthera stood at the front, her graceful form highlighted by the soft glow from the alien display screens. "Our outer sensors have detected no movement from the approaching threat," she reported. "However, we must remain vigilant. The enemy is cunning and patient." Seok Jin Yu sat in the back row, studying the tactical displays. For 3 months he had been analyzing the Velthani defensive strategy. Something about it bothered him, like an itch he couldn't scratch. General Park nodded approvingly. "Your technology has given us capabilities we never dreamed of. Earth's children can sleep safely knowing we have such powerful protectors." Several human officers murmured agreement. The Velthani had indeed transformed Earth's defensive capabilities. Their energy shields could stop nuclear weapons. Their detection systems could spot a pebble at the edge of the solar system. Their weapons could vaporize threats before they even got close. But Seok-jin couldn't stay quiet any longer. He stood up slowly, drawing attention from both humans and aliens in the room. "Commander Velthara," he said clearly, "I have a question." Shocker. Velthani commander turned her large, dark eyes toward him. For just a moment, Seok-jin thought he saw something flicker across her features. Worry? Fear? It was gone too quickly to be sure. "Of course, strategist Yu. What would you like to know? What exactly are we being protected from?" The room went completely silent. Other human officers shifted uncomfortably. It was such a simple question, but somehow no one had asked it directly before. They had all just accepted the Velthani explanation of a terrible threat. Commander Velthera's graceful composure seemed to slip slightly. She glanced at her fellow Velthani officers before answering. As I have explained, ancient enemies threaten this region of space. Destroyers who consume entire worlds. Yes, but what are they called? Seok-jin pressed. What do they look like? How do they fight? Where do they come from? Boram Kang, sitting near the front, began paying closer attention. As a military intelligence officer, she was trained to notice when people avoided giving specific answers. These are complex matters, Belthara replied. The nature of the enemy is difficult to explain in human terms. Try us, Seok-jin said firmly. We're not children. If we're going to fight alongside you, shouldn't we know what we're fighting? More uncomfortable silence filled the room. General. Park looked annoyed at Seok-jin for pushing so hard, but Boram was now taking notes. The Velthani were definitely being evasive. The enemy has many forms, Velthara said finally. They adapt and change. This is why our defenses must be so comprehensive. After the meeting, Seok-jin found Boram waiting for him in the hallway. That was interesting, she said quietly. They really don't want to talk about this enemy. I've been thinking the same thing for weeks, Seok-jin replied. Have you noticed anything else strange? Boram looked around to make sure they were alone. Their ship positions. I've been mapping them, and they're not arranged to defend against an external attack. They're arranged to contain something. Meanwhile, in another part of the building, Wu Jinhan was having his own doubts. The investigative journalist had been trying to research the Velthani's claims about approaching enemies, but he couldn't find any evidence. His research partner, Yunsu Oh, had been analyzing all available data about space around Earth. Her computers had been monitoring radio signals, gravitational anomalies, and energy signatures for months. If there really is a massive enemy fleet approaching, Yunsu told Wu Jin, we should be able to detect some trace of them by now, but I'm finding nothing. Maybe their technology is too advanced for our sensors to detect, Wu Jin suggested. Maybe. But the Velthani claim these enemies will be here in 5 years. That means they should be less than 5 light years away. Even with perfect stealth technology, something that big should create gravitational effects we could measure. Wu Jin decided to dig deeper. He began studying Velthani communication patterns, using the translation software that had been developed for diplomatic contact. What he found was disturbing. The Velthani sent regular reports back to their home fleet, but these reports weren't about enemy movements or defensive preparations. They were detailed studies of human behavior, technology, and military capabilities. They're not just protecting us, he told Yunsu. They're studying us. Every aspect of our society, our technology, our weapons. Why would they need to know so much about us if we're just the ones being protected? Yunsu pulled up more data on her screen. Look at this. I've been tracking their scan patterns. They're not scanning outward for approaching enemies. They're scanning Earth, constantly down to the individual city level. The pieces of the puzzle were starting to come together, but the picture they formed was not what anyone expected. Dr. Minho Choi had been working closely with the Velthani scientists, learning about their technology. But lately, he had started asking questions that seemed to make them uncomfortable. How did your species develop such advanced technology? He asked during one of their sessions. The Velthani scientist, who went by the name Carvel, paused in his work. We have had many centuries to develop and refine our methods. But human technology has advanced incredibly fast in just the last 100 years, Minho continued. We went from basic flight to space travel, from simple computers to artificial intelligence. Your people seem impressed by how quickly we learn. Carvel looked distinctly uncomfortable. Human development is unusual. Unusual how? Most species follow predictable patterns. They develop slowly, steadily. Humans do not follow these patterns. Hye-jin Nam, who had been listening to this conversation, felt a chill run down her spine. What do you mean by that? But Carvel had already returned to his work, refusing to say more. That evening, the small group of suspicious humans met in secret. Seok-jin, Boram, Wu Jin, Yunsu, Minho, and Hee-jin gathered in a secure room to share what they had learned. The evidence is clear, Wu Jin said. They're not here to protect us from someone else. They're here to study us. But why? Asked Haijin. What could they possibly want to learn about us? Boram spread out her tactical analysis on the table. Look at their ship positions again. These aren't defensive formations. They're containment formations. They're not keeping something out, they're keeping us in. The realization hit all of them at the same time. The Velthani weren't their protectors, they were their jailers. We need more proof, Seokjin said grimly. We need to know the truth about why they're really here. And we need to find out what happens if we try to leave, added Min-Ho. Outside. The beautiful Velthani ships continued their patrol patterns around Earth. To most humans, they represented safety and protection. But to the small group of investigators, they now looked like the bars of a cage. The next day, Seokjin requested another meeting with Commander Velthara. This time, he was going to ask the questions that really mattered. He was going to demand the truth. And he had a feeling that the truth was going to change everything. The confrontation came sooner than anyone expected. Seokjin had requested a private meeting with Commander Velthara, but she arrived with 3 other Velthani officers. The tension in the room was immediate. Strategist you, Velthara said. Carefully. I understand you have concerns about our defensive strategy. I have concerns about a lot of things, Seokjin replied. He activated a holographic display showing ship positions around Earth. These formations aren't designed to keep enemies out. They're designed to keep us in. Velthara's elegant features remained calm, but her fellow officers exchanged worried glances. I'm afraid I don't understand your meaning. Stop lying to... The voice came from behind Seokjin. Boram entered the room, followed by Woojin, Yunsu, Minho, and Hyejin. We know what you're really doing here. Woojin stepped forward with a data pad. We've analyzed your communication patterns. You're not reporting on enemy movements, you're studying us. Every detail of human society, technology, and military capability. And your scanning patterns, added Yunsu. You're not looking outward for threats. You're constantly scanning Earth, monitoring our cities, our populations, our activities. Commander Velthara was quiet for a long moment. When she finally spoke, her voice was different. Sadder. More tired. You are more perceptive than we anticipated, she said. This complicates matters significantly. What matters? Demanded Seokjin. What's really going on here? Velthara looked at her officers, who gave small nods. She seemed to come to a decision. Very well. You have forced our hand. The truth is there is no approaching enemy fleet. The humans stared at her in shock. Even though they had suspected this, hearing it confirmed was still jarring. Then why are you here? Asked Hyejin. We are here, Velthara said slowly, to protect the galaxy from humanity. The words hung in the air like a physical blow. None of the humans spoke for several seconds. That's impossible, Minho finally said. We're barely capable of spaceflight. How could we threaten an entire galaxy? Dr. Choi, Velthara said, in your studies of our technology, how quickly have you begun to understand our principles? Well, quite quickly, actually. Human intuition seems to help us grasp concepts that... Minho stopped, realization dawning on his face. Exactly. In 3 months, your species has begun to understand technology that took us centuries to develop. This is not normal. Velthara activated her own holographic display. It showed the development timeline of various alien species across the galaxy. Every species we have encountered follows predictable patterns of development. They advance slowly, steadily, over thousands of years. They specialize in particular areas of knowledge. They reach certain limits and stop advancing. The display showed dozens of species, all following similar curved lines of technological progress. Humans do not follow these patterns. A new line appeared on the display, humanity's development curve. It was completely different. Instead of a smooth curve, it was a steep, accelerating line that shot upward like a rocket. In just 200 years, you went from simple steam engines to nuclear weapons. In 50 more years, you developed computers, spaceflight, and genetic engineering. Your rate of advancement is unprecedented in galactic history. Jae-hyun Lim, a xenobiologist who had been studying both species, was called in to explain further. He had been working closely with the Velthani scientists and now understood their fears. What makes humans dangerous isn't their technology, Jae-hyun explained to the growing group of humans who had learned the truth. It's their adaptability. Every species the Velthani have encountered specializes. They become very good at one or two things. Humans are generalists. They can learn anything, adapt to anything, and most importantly, weaponize anything. President Jin-Woo Lee had been called to this emergency session. His face was pale as he listened to the revelations. "Give me an example," he said quietly. Velthara touched her display, showing images of human history. "When your species discovered nuclear energy, what was the first application?" "Weapons," the president admitted. "When you developed rockets for space exploration, what was their original purpose?" "Military missiles." "When you created the internet for communication and information sharing, what quickly became one of its primary uses?" President Lee was quiet. Everyone knew the answer: warfare, surveillance, and control. "This pattern repeats throughout human history," Velthara continued. "Every discovery, every advancement, every tool is quickly adapted for conflict. This is not necessarily malicious. It appears to be simply how your species thinks." Young-soo. Kim, a military historian, found himself nodding reluctantly. "She's not wrong. Human warfare has driven most of our technological advancement. But that doesn't make us a threat to the galaxy," protested Sunmi Lee, a philosopher who had been brought into the discussions. "We've never shown aggression toward other species." "Because you haven't encountered other species until now," replied Velthara. "Our projections show that if humanity is allowed to expand into the galaxy, you will not simply compete with other species. You will dominate them." She showed more projections, computer models of human expansion into space. In every simulation, human adaptability and technological advancement led to them overwhelming other civilizations. "Not through malice," Velthara continued, "but through sheer capability. Your species learns faster, adapts quicker, and innovates more rapidly than any other known form of life." "These are just computer models," said Dong-hyun Park, one of the president's advisors. "They're not proof of what would actually happen." Velthara's expression became even sadder. "Dr. Choi, in the 3 months you have been studying our technology, have you made any improvements to it?" Minho looked uncomfortable. "Well, yes. Small ones. I found more efficient energy routing methods and improved the shield harmonics by about 12%. Technology that took us 300 years to perfect, you improved in 3 months. This is exactly what we feared would happen." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity's greatest strength, their ability to learn, adapt, and innovate, was exactly what made them terrifying to other species. "So what now?" asked President Lee. "Are you going to destroy us?" "No," Velthara replied immediately. "The Velthani do not destroy other species. But neither can we allow humanity to expand beyond this solar system. So we're prisoners," said Sunmi Lee flatly. "You are contained, for the safety of the galaxy." Seokjin felt anger rising in his chest. "You had no right to make that decision for us." "Did we not?" Velthara challenged. "When a species develops nuclear weapons, do they not have a responsibility to prevent their spread to dangerous groups? When a disease could kill millions, do doctors not quarantine the infected?" "We're not a disease," Hyejin said angrily. "Are you not?" Velthara's voice was gentle but firm. "Your species has a unique combination of traits that make you incredibly dangerous. Rapid technological advancement, creative problem-solving, aggressive expansion, and the ability to weaponize any discovery. In the wrong circumstances, humanity could destabilize the entire galaxy." Chung Ho Nam, an engineer who had been quietly listening, spoke up. "But what if you're wrong? What if we could be trusted to expand peacefully?" "The risk is too great," Velthara replied. "If we are wrong about containing you, the worst result is that one species remains limited to their home system. If we are wrong about freeing you, the worst result could be the end of galactic civilization as we know it. As the meeting ended, and the humans filed out, one thing was clear. Everything had changed. Earth wasn't under alien protection. Earth was under alien lockdown. And now humanity had to decide what they were going to do about it. The revelation split humanity down the middle. In emergency sessions across the globe, world leaders debated furiously about how to respond to the Velthani containment. Dong-Hyun Park stood before the United Nations Assembly, his voice carrying clearly through the hall. We must accept the wisdom of the Velthani, he argued. They have shown us projections, evidence, logical reasoning. If our expansion truly threatens other species, don't we have a moral obligation to limit ourselves? Half. The assembly nodded in agreement. These were the people who believed that humanity should accept its cage gracefully. For the greater good of the galaxy. Young Seo rose to counter him, her eyes blazing with determination. Since when do we let others decide our fate? The Velthani have made themselves judge, jury, and jailer without our consent. No species has the right to imprison another based on what they might do. The other half of the assembly erupted in applause. These were the people who believed that freedom was worth fighting for, regardless of the consequences. President Jin Woo Lee found himself caught in the middle, trying to find a path that wouldn't lead to civil war or species extinction. The pressure was enormous, and every decision could affect humanity's future for centuries to come. Meanwhile, in a secure laboratory deep underground, Chang Ho Nam was working with dangerous urgency. The brilliant engineer had been studying Velthani technology since their arrival, and now he had a specific goal: figure out how to neutralize their containment systems. His partner, Ara Jung, was a quantum physicist whose innovative thinking had already impressed several Velthani scientists. Together, they made a formidable team. The key is understanding their power source, Chang Ho explained as he worked. Their ships run on some kind of quantum field manipulation. If we can disrupt that, we could disable their fleet. Ara finished. But Chang Ho, are you sure we should be doing this? What if the Velthani are right about us being dangerous? Chang Ho paused in his work. It was a question that had been bothering him too. But his answer came from deep in his heart. Maybe we are dangerous. Maybe we would dominate the galaxy if we were free. But that's our choice to make, not theirs. Freedom includes the freedom to make mistakes. Unknown to Chang Ho and Ara, their work was being watched. Insu Park, a psychologist who had been studying both human and Velthani behavior, had placed hidden cameras in the laboratory, not to spy for the aliens, but to understand human nature better. What he saw confirmed his growing theory. Humans were indeed as dangerous as the Velthani claimed, but not for the reasons the aliens thought. It's not our technology or our weapons that make us dangerous, Insu explained to his research team. It's our refusal to accept limitations. Show a human an impossible problem, and they'll find a way to solve it. Tell a human something can't be done, and they'll do it anyway. He pointed to the hidden camera footage of Chang Ho and Ara. Look at them. 3 months ago, they had never seen Velthani technology. Now they're close to understanding it well, enough to defeat it. This is what terrifies the Velthani. Not that we're warlike, but that we're unstoppable. While the engineers worked in secret and the psychologists studied, diplomatic efforts continued. Kyungmin, Earth's most skilled negotiator, was trying to find middle ground with Commander Velthara. There must be some compromise, Kyungmin argued during one of their private meetings. Some way for humanity to expand while addressing your concerns. Velthara seemed genuinely regretful. I wish there were, Negotiator but our models are clear. Even limited expansion would eventually lead to human dominance. Your models could be wrong. They could be. But if they are correct, and we allow human expansion, entire civilizations could be destroyed. Can you ask us to take that risk? Kyungmin had no answer for that. The Velthani position was logically sound, even if it was morally questionable. But not everyone was focused on compromise. Hyunwoo Kim, a military commander, was quietly preparing for the possibility of armed conflict. He had been studying Velthani, ship movements, identifying weaknesses in their formations, planning scenarios for breaking their containment. His staff was small but dedicated. They all understood that fighting the Velthani would be almost certainly suicidal, but they also understood that some things were worth dying for. If it comes to war, Hyunwoo told his officers, we won't win through superior technology. We'll have to win through superior tactics, superior adaptation, and superior will. Captain Dae-ho Kim, who had first detected the alien fleet, was now working closely with the military planners. Their ships are powerful but predictable, he reported. They follow standard formation protocols. If we could somehow get inside their defensive perimeter, we'd need a way past their shields, added Major Song-min Lee, something they wouldn't expect. Leave that to the engineers, Hyunwoo said grimly. The Velthani were not blind to human activities. Commander Velthara called an emergency meeting with her senior staff aboard their flagship. The humans are planning resistance, reported Sub-Commander Kelvon. Our sensors detect increased activity in their military installations and research facilities. This was anticipated, Velthara replied, but her tone showed her disappointment. We had hoped they would accept containment peacefully. Should we take preventive action? Asked another officer. Disable their military capabilities before they can be used against us? Velthara considered this carefully. Not yet. Taking aggressive action against them would prove their point that we are oppressors, not protectors. But prepare contingency plans if they force a conflict. She didn't finish the sentence, but her officers understood. The Velthani had not survived as galactic peacekeepers by being pacifists when threatened. Back on Earth, the secret engineering project reached a breakthrough. Chang-ho burst into Aira's workspace, excitement clear on his face. I've got it, he announced. The quantum field manipulation. It's actually simpler than we thought. Humans approach quantum mechanics differently than the Velthani do. Where they see complex mathematical relationships, we see intuitive patterns. Shera looked at his calculations with amazement. This could actually work. We could build a device that disrupts their power systems. Not just disrupts them, Chang-ho corrected with a grin, turns them off completely. Every ship in their fleet would lose power simultaneously. But their celebration was short-lived. Tae-young Lee, a young programmer who had been working on communication systems, burst into the lab. We have a problem, he announced breathlessly. I was trying to improve the translation software, and I accidentally triggered something in the Velthani quantum network. What kind of something? Asked Aira. I think I just invented a new form of faster-than-light communication. Something that makes their systems look primitive. Chang-ho stared at him. How is that possible? I don't know. I was just applying human logic to their quantum mechanics, and suddenly I had something completely new. Something they never thought of. In that moment, all three engineers understood the true scope of the Velthani's fear. It wasn't just that humans were dangerous. It was that they were unpredictably innovative. Give a human alien technology, and they wouldn't just learn to use it. They'd improve it in ways the original creators never imagined. Word of the breakthrough spread quickly through the human resistance network. Junho Han, who had become Earth's unofficial chief strategist, called an emergency meeting. This changes everything, he told the assembled leaders. We now have proof that the Velthani were right to fear us. In just 3 months of contact, we've not only understood their technology, we've surpassed it. So what do we do? Asked Mi Young Seo. We make them an offer they can't refuse, Junho replied. We show them that containing us is impossible, but we also show them that working with us might be beneficial. President Lee nodded slowly. A demonstration of power combined with an offer of partnership. Exactly. We prove that their cage cannot hold us, but we also prove that we don't have to be their enemy. As preparations began for this high-stakes gambit, everyone understood that the next few days would determine humanity's future. Would they break free of alien containment through force? Would they accept permanent imprisonment? Or would they find a third option that no one had yet imagined? The auditor answer, like so many human solutions, would come from thinking outside the boundaries that others considered absolute. The moment that changed everything happened by accident. Tae-Young Lee was working late in the communications center, trying to refine the translation software that allowed humans and Velthani to speak with each other. His partner, Sora Kim, had gone home hours ago, leaving him alone with the quantum communication arrays. Just one more test, he muttered to himself, adjusting the quantum field parameters. He had been applying human intuitive leaps to Velthani mathematical principles, and the results had been promising. He activated the modified system and watched the displays light up with new patterns. The quantum field synchronized in ways that shouldn't have been possible according to Velthani science. Suddenly, every screen in the room began flashing urgent warnings. "What did I do?" Tae-Young whispered, staring at the readings. According to the instruments, he had just created a stable, faster-than-light communication channel that was 50 times more efficient than anything the Velthani used. But that wasn't the shocking part. The shocking part was that his accidental breakthrough had also created a new form of space-time manipulation that could power faster-than-light travel beyond anything either species had ever imagined. Within minutes, alarms were sounding throughout. The Velthani fleet. Commander Velthara rushed to her ship's sensor station, her elegant features showing rare panic. "What is that energy signature?" she demanded. "Unknown, Commander," replied her sensor officer. "The quantum distortion is unlike anything in our databases. It appears to be coming from the human communication facility." Velthara's blood went cold. They've done it again. Meanwhile, on Earth, Tae-Young was frantically trying to understand what he had created. He called Chang-Ho and A-Ra immediately. "I need help," he told them urgently. "I think I accidentally broke physics." When the two engineers arrived and saw Tae-Young's work, they stood in stunned silence. Chang-Ho was the first to speak. "This is incredible. You've created a unified field that connects quantum communication and gravitational manipulation. This is beyond revolutionary. This is impossible." "But it's working," Sora pointed out as she arrived, having been called in despite the late hour. "That's what makes it impossible," A-Ra said with amazement. "According to everything we know about physics, this should not work. But here it is, working perfectly." Word of the breakthrough reached Jun Ho-han within the hour. He immediately understood the implications. This wasn't just a technological advance. It was proof of everything the Velthani feared about humanity. "They said we were dangerous because we adapt and innovate too quickly," he told President Lee over a secure communication line. "This proves their point while simultaneously making their containment impossible." President Lee was quiet for a long moment. "What do you recommend?" "We use this as the basis for a new proposal. We've just proven that containing us is pointless. If we want to leave this solar system, we now have the technology to do it. But we can also prove that we don't have to be their enemy." The next morning, President Lee called for an emergency meeting with Commander Velthara. The alien leader arrived looking tired and worried. "I assume you know about last night's accident," President Lee said. Vel quote. Thera nodded grimly. "Your species has once again exceeded our most pessimistic projections. In 3 months of exposure to our technology, you have not only matched our capabilities but surpassed them. This doesn't have to be a bad thing," President Lee said carefully. "Doesn't it? You have just proven every fear we had about human expansion. Given access to advanced technology, your species immediately weaponizes it and improves it beyond the original specifications." "But we haven't weaponized this new technology," President Lee pointed out. "We could have. We could have built weapons with it or used it to break out of your containment immediately. Instead, we're here talking to you." Velthara studied the human leader carefully. "What are you proposing?" "A partnership. Not containment, not conflict, but cooperation." Hana Yoon, Earth's most skilled diplomat, stepped forward with a detailed proposal that had been prepared through the night. The Velthani fear that human Expansion will threaten galactic stability, she said. But what if human expansion could actually help galactic stability? She activated a holographic display showing her proposal. Controlled expansion with Velthani oversight. Humans explore and colonize new worlds, but with Velthani advisors who can guide us away from the most dangerous paths of development. Commander. Velthara looked intrigued despite herself. Continue. Your species has wisdom accumulated over centuries. Our species has innovation and adaptability. Together we could solve problems that neither species could handle alone. And what guarantees do we have that humans would accept such guidance? Velthara asked. President Lee smiled. The same guarantee you have now. None. But consider the alternative. You can't contain us anymore. This breakthrough proves that. You can either work with us as partners, or you can try to stop us as enemies. And if we choose to stop you? The question hung in the air. Everyone knew that a war between humans and Velthani would be devastating for both species. But they also knew that humans, with their new technological capabilities, might actually have a chance of winning. Let me show you something, President Lee said, activating another display. This is a projection of what happens if you try to contain us by force. The display showed simulation results that Chang Ho and his team had prepared. In every scenario where the Velthani tried to impose containment through military action, the result was catastrophic for both species. Now let me show you what happens if we work together. The new projections showed something different. Humans and Velthani collaborating, human innovation guided by Velthani wisdom, leading to unprecedented advances that benefited the entire galaxy. These are very optimistic projections, Velthara observed. They're based on what we've already accomplished. In 3 months of partial cooperation, Hana replied. Imagine what we could do with full partnership. Velthara was quiet for a long time, clearly thinking. Finally, she spoke. There is precedent for what you suggest. The Velthani have served as guides for other species before, but never for a species as unpredictable as humanity. That unpredictability could be an asset, not just a liability, suggested Junho Han, who had joined the meeting. Your species has encountered problems that standard approaches couldn't solve. Human innovation might provide solutions you've never considered. Over the following days, negotiations continued. The Velthani Council debated intensely among themselves. Some argued that humans were too dangerous to be trusted. Others pointed out that containing them was no longer possible anyway. The breakthrough came when Velthara made a confession to President Lee during a private meeting. The truth is, she said quietly, the Velthani have been stagnating for centuries. Our technology has plateaued. Our society has become rigid. We came to Earth initially because our long-range sensors detected unusual quantum signatures from your planet. Signatures that suggested a species capable of the kind of innovation we had lost. So you were studying us from the beginning? Yes. We told ourselves it was for the galaxy's protection, but part of us hoped that contact with humans might revitalize our own development. President Lee smiled. Then we both get what we want. The final agreement was unlike anything in galactic history. Humans would be allowed to explore and expand beyond Earth, but with Velthani advisors on every colony ship and in every new settlement. The Velthani would provide guidance and wisdom, while humans would provide innovation and fresh perspectives. Most importantly, any new technologies developed through this partnership would be shared with other species in the galaxy, ensuring that human innovation would benefit everyone rather than threatening them. Seong-Ho Park was chosen as the first human Velthani joint mission commander. As he stood on the bridge of humanity's first interstellar colony ship, he looked out at the stars with wonder. Beside him, Commander Velthara, now his co-commander, watched the same view with her own sense of anticipation. Are you ready for this? She asked. As ready as any human can be for the impossible, Seong-Ho replied with a grin. The ship engaged its new, faster-than-light drive, a fusion of human innovation and Velthani engineering that neither species could have created alone. As Earth fell away behind them, Both humans and Velthani looked ahead to a future full of unknown possibilities. Behind them, on Earth, the truth of the Velthani's original mission was finally revealed to the public. It turned out that this had always been their plan, not to contain humanity forever, but to ensure that when humans finally reached the stars, they would do so with wisdom as well as innovation. The galaxy was about to become a very different place, and for the first time in centuries the Velthani were excited to see what would happen next. After all, the most dangerous thing about humans had also proven to be their greatest strength. They never did what anyone expected them to do.